Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. This is Life List, a birding podcast. I am George Armistead here with my co-host, Alvaro Jaramillo. Al, what's cooking?
You're doing real fine here. Just thinking that was a good hello.
Thanks,
that was
man.
One of the best. Yeah.
You're sweet. I appreciate that.
You're getting better at this.
Yeah. Well, it takes time. It takes time.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Well, I think we should dive in here, Al.
We should dive in.
We should, right? We should dive in head first. We have got a very good friend, colleague here with us today, Brian Sullivan. Brian, after years of work in field jobs, including as a hawk watcher and hawk bander at Cape Charles, Virginia, Cape May, New Jersey, he joined in the team at eBird at Cornell Lab in 2005. He's authored a series of books, including the Offshore Sea Life ID guides, which both Al and I recommend for our pelagic trips for folks that are coming, especially for the first time, but even long after. He's done books on raptors. He co-authored Better Birding with me, which we published in 2015. Currently, he is involved in a new field guide to the birds of North America to be published by Princeton Press in the not-too-distant future. His main gig today is as digital publications lead for Birds of the World, which is a collaborative ornithological platform bringing together scholarly content from various works of ornithology, including the millions of bird observations from eBird and multimedia from the Macaulay Library, where biologists and birders can explore the comprehensive life history information on birds. Brian, we've been wanting to get you here for a long time. Welcome to Life List. It's great to have you here.
Hey, guys. Good to be here. Thanks for having me. Excited to talk to you both today.
Yeah, and the weirdest thing is we're all in the same time zone right now.
Right.
That is unusual.
Yeah. I mean, especially since Brian and I usually have lived in a different time zone together, separate from your time zone, and then now we're, all in the same time zone.
I was trying to specify the time that we were going to do this call, and I was like, oh, wait, we're all in the same time zone. I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, it's nice when that works out.
Yeah. Brian, tell us where you are right now.
So I'm back east at my parents' place in New Jersey, Long Beach Island. So I usually come out here in the summer for a few weeks, sometimes 3-4 weeks. And my daughter gets to do her thing at the beach, see grandparents, and I get to work from the office here and go birding and see some great early fall migration here.
Back in your native New Jersey. Must feel good.
It does feel good. Feels like putting on an old shoe.
Is there any go-to food that you go for that you maybe don't find in the West Coast that you're crave?
For sure. I think that the first order of business is always good pizza. Got to get good pizza. And then after that, it's usually bread, some type of reasonable bread or sandwiches, and then bagels. Those are sort of the three things that I just don't think you can get a good bagel in the West. I don't know. I haven't had one yet. And I'm probably picky, but yeah, pizza, sandwiches, those kinds of things are just East Coast, foods.
Speaking my love language right there.
There's we've talked about pizza in the past in this show about different, there's a Detroit style pizza, Chicago, blah, but there's actually a Montreal bagel, which is gather different subspecies, Canadian northern subspecies.
Limited range, I gather.
Limited range. But the weirdest thing is when I was in New Zealand, I went to this bagel place on the last morning or whatever, and they said authentic Montreal style bagels, which I thought was really weird because, for the average human being, the bagels from kind of New York area, New York, New Jersey, right? That's kind of the epicenter. And I'm still not clear on what defines, what are the field marks of the Montreal bagel, but it is a thing.
Yeah.
That's news to me.
Yeah, I'm curious now. Well, like when we spoke about the Detroit style pizza, I think I forget one of us or both of us were ignorant about the field characters of Detroit style pizza.
Right.
And since then, I routinely have people sending me pictures of it and have sampled it quite a bit more. And I am more familiar and appreciative.
It's square, right? It's like a square pizza. It's one thing.
Usually kind of a thick crust. It's pretty delectable.
Yeah. I will report back on what the Montreal bagel exactly is. And, it's, I know people care.
Yeah, we need to know.
I mean, in California, they make good pizza, but it's just a different kind of thing. It's really hard to get just a pizza with just cheese on it. You can't find that. You got to order that special. They all come with like a salad on top or some kind of thing. Here, it's the opposite. If you want a topping, you got to go out of your way to find that around here.
You can spoonful the grease on here also, which is nice. Yeah. Now, Brian, do you fold your slices of pizza? Are you a folder?
I'm a folder, yeah, especially with a classic, New Jersey, Philly, New York type big slice. Definitely a folder.
Me too. I watched some detective show, maybe I've mentioned this before, where like the detectives are like sitting around and they're like, there's like a piece of pizza lying on a coffee table and they're like, well, he must have been from the East Coast, folds his slices. And I was like, wow, didn't know that was a thing.
I think it's the only way to do it because when you fold, right, you get that, I don't know, tensile strength of the tube so it doesn't flop on you, right?
Yeah,
like
no flopping. Yeah.
No flopping.
And then all the grease runs out the end.
Yeah.
You can drip it onto a bagel. And
it's true. It's true. Yeah. Well, I suspect we could go on about pizza at some length, and we have in the past and even in the present. But Brian, I'm curious what you are seeing there. I know you've spent a ton of time over the years right where you're at there, Island Beach State Park and all along the Jersey coast. In fact, I remember getting my lifer, Brian Sullivan, at Barnegat Light State Park some years ago. What have you been seeing of late?
Yeah, if I remember, George, I think that was around about 1992 or 3.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Something in that. Yeah. So when I used to live here, I thought I knew what birds were around, and I'm realizing now that I'm better, that I missed a lot because all I need to do is sit and look at the bay in the morning and see this huge migration of shorebirds happening already. It's just early July, but all the adult shorebirds are piling through on their way south. And every morning there's significant visible migration here. If it's an offshore wind, we'll also get a morning flight. So yellow warblers are already on the move. So it's a pretty amazing place to be, even this early in fall migration.
Yeah, fabulous area. Yeah.
One of the things I was surprised to see the other day was just a couple of Corey's shearwaters from shore.
Oh my God.
The water's warm. I don't know what that means necessarily for Corey's, but when I was here in my younger days, I feel like I could stare at the ocean for days and not see a shearwater.
Yeah.
And now it seems quite a bit easier to see a shearwater from shore. Not sure what that means, but one of the ID things that I've been wrestling with is how do you do Corey's and Scopoles at a distance? I don't think you do, frankly, but been seeing them in the evenings here, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I did just see a new ID article for when they're at closer range, or you've got digital photos about how the leading edge of the outer primaries are actually pretty useful for separating Scopoles from Corys. But at a distance, I suspect, that will continue to be a serious challenge. And man, I don't think I've seen a Corey shearwater from shore in a long time. But at the same time, I have not been looking much of late. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've seen just in eBird, there are some records recently of, counts in the 40s and 50s from shore here, just on the south end of the island. So
wow,
some birds around.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's pretty cool.
Here's a question. When you use eBird, right? Do you ever just sit back and go, wow, when I joined eBird, nobody used it. Or, I mean, not nobody, but compared to today.
Yeah.
Right.
When did you join, Brian? When did you start at eBird?
I started in 2005. I was working on the California Channel Islands at the time as a field crew leader. Saw the job opportunity come across for eBird, and I think eBird was launched in 2002 officially by the lab, and a lot of us were super excited about the concept of it. And we went and tried to use this thing and realized that the combination of big ideas and technology weren't quite a match at that time. We're all on AOL dial-up connections and things like that. And, you had to log in and this checklist kind of slowly loaded in front of you, and you type your numbers in, and half the time it would crash or disconnect or something. And it was a pain in those early days, but I knew that the idea was solid, and this job opening came up around 2005 where they were looking for an eBird project leader, and I applied to that, and Chris Wood also applied to that, and luckily they decided to hire both of us to come in and try to build out what eBird was at the time. And our idea was to basically, it wasn't rocket science. We were just trying to build a set of tools that birders wanted to use, because at the time, not many birders were using it. So we were like, well, what is the basic functionality that we need here that would get some people to use this thing? And we built things like, your life list and all the simple stuff that birders wanted. And when I say we built it, Chris and I thought a lot about what these tools should be, but there was a team of people, including Tim Lenz and Jeff Gerbrock and all these developers at the lab who had the actual technical skills to realize the vision. So yeah, it was pretty cool to come in and take what was clearly a great idea and shape that into a set of tools that birders could use. When I use it today, I'm not so surprised anymore when I come to a place like New Jersey and I see a lot of use, but I am surprised when I travel the world and see that, the eBird uptake is pretty strong in a lot of places around the world. It's definitely been a rewarding thing to be involved with.
There's been a couple points where it seems like there's been major leaps in the uptake. And as you're talking about the early days, I was thinking, man, that was before there was even an app. That was before, which was a game changer for me, frankly, because I remember you working on this and being like, dude, you got to do this. You're going to love it. It's just, and I was like, harumping around even at 20, whatever I was. But then the app came and I was like, oh, this is easy now. And I mean, that must have been a huge leap forward. I'd be interested to hear what that was like for you guys at the lab, and if there were other big times when there were big leaps made.
Yeah, there's definitely been a few. I mean, I would say the first big leap was two things happened in 2007. We were able to bring on Marshall Iliff, who's a good mutual friend of ours. And Marshall brought an attention to data quality and an attention to detail that Chris and I definitely didn't have.
Wow, you managed to make that into a compliment somehow. That was well done.
No, I mean, and to this day, he's still focused on building the best data quality systems behind eBird. And, at the time, the data quality system was really rudimentary, so Marshall coming in, helping us steer not only the development of the project, but with that eye toward, it's got to be good or birders aren't going to use it. The data have to be solid. He was really transformational that way. And of course, 2007, I think, is when Steve Jobs held up the first iPhone and everything changed then. We didn't realize in 2007 how much it would change. But a couple of years later, a friend from Southern California named David Bell started to pioneer the idea of submitting checklists from a phone. So he first had a little app that allowed you to send an email to yourself with your checklist, and you could upload that. We had sort of a bulk upload process. You could upload a little file. And then David pioneered the first sort of handheld app to enter data directly into eBird called BirdLog. And we used that for a couple of years before we realized, oh man, this is where it's at. This is game changing for someone's ability to record what they're seeing as they're seeing it in the field. This is the only way to go. And we worked with Dave for a couple of years and then ended up acquiring the intellectual property to birdlog and still work with Dave in some capacity. But he was great because he was able to take that sort of initial step into a zone that was very foreign to us at the lab and show us that mobile's where it's at. And we've been sort of playing catch up with eBird mobile ever since. But I'd say it's gotten quite mature now, and I don't know the exact numbers, but you'd have to ask some of the eBird team. But I bet it's 90% of the data come in through the mobile app nowadays. I think the next big change was when eBird and Macaulay libraries sort of got together and said, we're going to figure out how to submit media through eBird into the Macaulay library. I think this was around 2015. So when you go to the Macaulay library today and you look up, I'll just use red-tailed hawks, my favorite. I mean, I think there's hundreds of thousands of images now of red-tailed hawks in the ML database, and you can slice and dice that by space and time. So you can say, hey, I just want to look at the redtails from New Jersey in August. You can, it's like a digital specimen collection. But in 2015, we really had the vision and did the technical development with Jesse Barry and others at Macaulay Library to pull that all together. And really, eBird, has been driving huge amounts of media coming in. And of course, those media have unlocked the magic of Merlin. So Merlin Vision, which was the first app where you could, upload a photo to it, it would tell you what bird it was. And now Merlin Sound ID, which has created just hockey stick growth for the use of Merlin in the last several years. Merlin Sound ID has been the biggest. I think it's the biggest advancement in someone's ability to detect and identify birds probably since binoculars. So I mean, it's just transformational, and it's engaged so many people. I think it's on 30 million devices now globally. So it's growing really rapidly. So yeah, there's some big steps in there for sure.
Yeah, must have been fascinating to witness each of those along the way from the inside there at the lab.
I've often thought of, you hear sometimes people talking about gamification, of stuff, to make it sort of fun and, like little prizes and what have you. And you guys sort of did that without doing it because birding is a game in a sense, right? We have these scores, right? Which is our lifers, our life list, our county list, or year lists. And you knew that birders liked to know those numbers, and they weren't necessarily always in competition with somebody else, but they wanted to have, the details of their life, like their birding life. And you kind of took that and said, we'll give you all this stuff. Just input the data, and it happens. And then essentially the data is what you guys wanted to work with for conservation and understanding distribution. And it's kind of like a win-win-win-win all over, for as far as I can see. It seems to me like birding is particularly like there's something special about birding and birders that allowed this even to happen, because you also have so many people who are really keen on doing things as volunteers to make sure the data's good, right? Which you wouldn't get necessarily if, we were talking about, I don't know, some other hobby, right? It's pretty wild that, I don't know if you guys had this concept exactly of that, like this is how or it kind of just happened more organically because you were birders and you said, oh, it'd be great if you could see your life list. I wouldn't mind that myself, or how did it happen?
Yeah, well, it was easier probably for us because we were the audience for the tool. In those early days, we were like, well, we're birders. What do we want? What tools would get us to take the steps to, use this thing? And, like you said, Al, birders, even the most zen birder keeps some kind of list in the back of their mind.
Right.
They may not be competitive with other birders and do those kinds of things, but everybody has some sense of what they've seen, and
right.
And we, because of the way that the technology worked, it was very easy for us to, if you plot a point on the map, we could just drill down through the various state and county and hotspot levels and create these lists for you over time. So the technology was there for us to exploit that ability to show people lists. I would say that when we started in the early days of eBird, everything we developed, every tool, every decision we made was solely geared toward trying to get people to submit complete checklists of birds. And this was because we had an analytical team at the lab, who was telling us if all anybody does is submit incidental observations, and you can think of that as just like I saw a golden eagle flying over in my car, and I'm going to plot a point on the map, and you just have a golden eagle. That's what we call an incidental observation, and that's good for some small set of information, like the bird was here on this day and location. It's really hard to do any robust scientific modeling with that. So the scientists at the lab were telling us, you need to have this concept of a complete checklist of birds. If you can get birders to do that, we can do a lot with these data. So Chris and I and Marshall took the ball and ran with it and tried to develop a whole bunch of tools that steered people toward doing complete checklists. And that was probably the single biggest fundamental shift that we asked birders to make to use eBird, because birders weren't used to doing complete lists, thinking about, oftentimes a birder, if they did a list at all, would start at the top of a mountain and go all the way down to the ocean and do a day list or something like that, maybe with notes on noteworthy birds in certain areas. But we were asking birders to be more conscious of when they're traveling, what habitats they're going through, and doing a complete checklist of birds. And that means recording all the birds you see and hear to the best of your ability. Doesn't mean you see and hear everything. It just means you're not leaving stuff off the list because you don't find it interesting or something like that. So, that's when we started, it was about 20% complete checklist. And now I think it's about 85% complete checklist coming into eBird. And I would say that, one of the most diabolical things that Marshall ever did was devise this game called the Top 100.
I was going to ask. I was totally going to ask about this.
Yeah.
I was going to be like, what is your take on the Top 100? Yeah.
So I can go on record as saying that I didn't think this was going to be a good idea, and I was wrong, because it's,
I'm unconvinced, but
you can opt out of it if you don't want to. If you're not that kind of birder and you don't want to do that stuff, I would say opt out of it. But when you see how much that's driven people to get into the field and submit complete checklists, it's been a game changer. And every year, some small subset of people in my county, they sort of go head to head in the top 100, and at the end of the year, you can see that they've submitted sometimes more than 1,000 complete checklists, sometimes 2,000 complete checklists of birding in the process. So it's a game that definitely pits birder against birder, but it's driving a lot of data into the system in the process. So I'd say Marshall was right and I was wrong on that one.
Just recently, I guess it was a Cuba tour, I realized I'd hit 20,000 checklists. And I was like, oh man, that's like a big round number. But then I realized that I'm only at 17,000 complete checklists. So now it's like, I'm just sort of like, all right, let's do more complete checklists. And it doesn't really, it doesn't drive me as much as you'd think, but I have it in the back of my head, like, oh yeah, let's make sure if I see something cool, and let's spend 5 minutes here and do a complete checklist versus just put that cool thing in there and move on, which often is like you're shopping or like you say, like a golden eagle flies over, and make it into a 5-minute complete checklist rather than just let it sit as the single, Obviously you want to have a better quality than that, but it makes me kind of shift a little bit my behavior on it.
I'm always surprised when I see a bird of interest, like say you see a golden eagle and you stop the car and you just get out for 3 minutes, what else you see in a place that you never would have stopped to go birding. So
Right.
I don't know. I personally, I get a kick out of feeling like I'm contributing something to the data set that's new. So I often try to get off the beaten path and go add
Yeah.
data in places where I think data are sparse. So that's kind of what gives me a kick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I
There
always
was
say
a
is my favorite thing is to be a data point.
data point.
Yeah, that like I like being someplace where I feel like there may not be other checklists recorded for
Yeah.
that day or time. That's one of the
I
things that
think
motivates me.
Brian was like years ago was giving a talk. Maybe it was like at the Central Valley Bird Symposium or something. And you said something like stuck with me forever as like, wow, that is a superb goal. Well, you sort of said you wanted everybody at eBird wants to have enough data coming in all the time that you could have like a pinpoint day by day measure of the health of the world's bird populations. And I was like, holy crap, like that's actually sort of possible, right? Like it's each day, it's more and more possible that you could sort of say today, something weird showed up in the data that's different from this day last year with, I know, Corey Shearwater. And not just health, but even just the movements. And I thought that's exactly what we've all wanted. Like it's the holy grail of just having everything kind of, in a sense, cataloged and documented enough at enough grain of detail that you could say, hey, we got a problem here, or the opposite. Like we've got some real success going on over here, and I've really thought that was kind of a magical idea that you guys had. And maybe you don't even remember saying it, but I do.
Well, I think that one of the other big inflection points for eBird was, it's pretty funny. At the time, we were trying to figure out how to use very limited dollars toward advancing eBird. And our director at the time, Steve Kelling, was adamant that we should be hiring a person to analyze the data. And Chris and Marshall and I were like, there is no data. And Steve was like, we need to hire somebody to come in, think outside the box. This is not your average structured data set. This is going to be a big, messy, different kind of data set that's going to take somebody with real statistical analytical chops to think through. And Steve hired a statistician named Daniel Fink, who has been responsible for all the modeling that, I can remember sitting in a room in maybe 2008 with Daniel and him showing us the first animations of eBird data showing things like tree swallow and eastern phoebe just moving across the landscape. And we were just blown away. And to this day, when I give a talk, those visualizations, they've grown a lot, right? We have animated sort of relative abundance that's colorful, and they're really compelling visuals. They still get the biggest audible gasps, from the audience when I give a talk. But this idea that if we gathered enough data, we could do something to understand bird populations, trends, abundance. Trends wasn't even on the horizon necessarily in the early days. We were focused on abundance. Now, of course, the eBird modeling team, they're publishing all kinds of papers now. The latest one just came out on trends where they modeled, I think, 600 species. And the trends that they're creating are, as you say, Al, they're unprecedented in their spatial and temporal resolution. So, you're talking about maybe 27 kilometers every week of the year for 15 years. We can see what these birds are doing. And that is the goal, is to sort of measure the heartbeat of the planet through birds. And if we can do that, as you guys both know, birds are incredible bioindicators. So once we can see what bird populations are doing, the next question is, well, why are they increasing here and decreasing here? And that involves a whole different set of data that we need to start thinking about and collecting. But when we have all this information, hopefully conservationists can make more informed decisions about what to protect, when to protect it, and why. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. And I think it is possible with the combination of data collected by birders and probably some really cutting edge science with bioacoustics at scale, like deploying automated recording units into all the the deep forest areas where birders can't go, or conflict regions that are unsafe for birders, those kinds of things. That combination of bioacoustics and observational data will really give us that unified model moving forward to see exactly what these populations are doing. So that's kind of where we're heading in the future.
Wow.
It's amazing to think where
cool.
we've come. Like there's like Christmas bird counts and breeding bird surveys, like for a long time, and those were good, valiant efforts. But compared to what is going on now, it's a different story.
I mean, those data sets are still valuable, and their value is the length of time and the fact that they've been repeated, in a fairly standardized way. I mean, the BBS is still the gold standard, or thought of as the gold standard for looking at trends in bird populations. And I think I wouldn't want to say that structured data aren't important. I just think that structured data, in addition to the semi-structured data that we collect through eBird, that's the way to go. The more data, the better. And structured data still provide a measure of a type of analysis that you can't quite get with semi-structured data. So, still valuable.
Mm-hmm. And isn't it true that like just the body of data that eBird is now is like that's attracted attention from people that are just fascinated by data, period?
Well, yeah, I think eBird just recently surpassed 2 billion observations in its data set, and I think it's the largest biodiversity data set on the planet. So if you look at some of the broad sort of all taxa aggregating services like the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, which is GBIF, they gather observation data on all organisms, and eBird contributes to that. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on the exact figure, but I think eBird's up above 50% of all biodiversity data set in GBIF now. So it is an unprecedented biodiversity layer. When you think about like a spatial layer of information we have to work with, there's just nothing like it. And as Al said earlier, birds are really unique in that way. There's millions of people out there looking at them. They live everywhere. They're fairly easily identified and censused. So they lend themselves really well to this kind of model.
Helps that they're good looking too.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
Hey there, and happy Halloween, life listeners. I hope everybody is having a great autumn season. I am super excited. I'm working on my Halloween costume as we speak. I will reveal more about that at a later date, but let's just say it involves an FBI jacket. I'll leave it at that. But I wanted to give some shout outs here. Hey, you, Deniz Agan. Hey, Susan Henyon. Hey, Lee Yanetma, Rachel Emmett, Ryan Pate, Sue, and Brenda. Thanks to all of you for joining Patreon. You guys are helping us do what we do. We really appreciate it. And I hope you're enjoying the bonus content you get as a gadfly, a boom chachalaka, and we really appreciate your support as Timberdoodles as well. So thanks everybody for listening. And if you haven't checked out Patreon, go check it out. We got some more Life List material there if you're interested and want to hear more from Alvaro, from Molly, and from me, George. I hope you'll check us out. Thanks again, everybody, and go check out Patreon. Happy Halloween and happy autumn birding.
Totally different subject. You mentioned the red-tailed hawk, that you like the red-tailed hawk. What is it about the red-tailed hawk? See, I kind of know the answers to these things because people ask me, why do you like gulls? And I think it's similar. But why red-tailed hawk? Like, you could be looking at something, gyrfalcons or something. Obviously, you would, but
like Brian, you travel specifically to see red-tailed hawks in places and census them. Even now,
I do. So there's a researcher named Bryce Robinson. He's a PhD researcher at Cornell. He started a project called the Red-tailed Hawk Project, And that project is a collaboration of researchers now around North America looking at everything about the red-tailed hawk as sort of a study system, including, plumage variation, polymorphism, all this stuff. Redtails, to me, apart from being a quite common and incredibly beautiful raptor, it's nice to go out on any given day. I can go out and find a redtail. It's pretty hard to not see one, which I love, and every redtail is different. They're like snowflakes, you know. Even where I live in Monterey, where you'd think, uh, they all kind of look a certain way, they don't, and they're just an incredible system for studying this complex interplay between geographic variation, described subspecies, extreme polymorphism. There are taxa embedded in the complex that were formerly thought to be species, and some still think they're species, like Harlan's red-tailed hawk.
Yeah, I would love to see that thing split again, even if it doesn't make sense.
See, when you see one of these things, you're thinking, man, like that one you had in Half Moon Bay, Al, that one.
Oh, yeah.
Striking bird, you're like, well, is this really a redtail? But then, of course, there's this climb, and they don't all look so striking. Some of them have red tails with just a little bit of weirdness in them, and we don't know where one thing ends and another thing begins, sort of genetically or phenotypically even. So there's a lot of mysteries, and to add to that, the really interesting red tails all migrate to northern Canada and disappear off the map in the summer. So all of these weird taxa that we're trying to sort of unravel the mysteries behind, they disappear off the map. So the Red-tailed Hawk Project, we trying to figure out the answers to all these questions by using serious analytical techniques. And we've tagged, and I say we, it's not me really, it's Bryce and his cohort of researchers have tagged with satellite tags now hundreds of birds. So, we have tracks that show where all these interesting phenotypes go, and we know where they breed now, but we still don't necessarily know what they are. So Bryce's research is creating a full phylogeny of the red-tailed hawk taxa and trying to figure out what all these weirdos are. And, if anybody listening lives in the southern Great Plains, that is the melting pot for red-tailed hawk biodiversity. Or, when you go, I should say phenotypic diversity, you go there in the winter and you'll see red tails that are just head scratchers that you just can't put a name on. And I just find that fascinating. And it's really similar in some ways to the gulls, Al. If you go out gull watching in Central California, Northern California in the winter, you better be prepared to not be able to put names on many, many birds that you see.
Right.
They're
just odd.
Yeah, they're just odd. So, it's a really fun bird to dig into those sort of thorny science topics with, I think.
Yeah. And I actually saw that there was now, probably existed for a while, a rough-legged hawk project that sort of, kind of started up that, I saw a little publication on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hawks in general, pretty neat. Even things that we sort of see as not being that variable, like broadwings. You go to the west in Alberta and there's all those dark ones. You go to Cuba and the Caribbean and there's these birds that look different and sound different. And you're, okay, it's like each one of these has a lot to consider, but red-tailed hawks, definitely.
Yeah. I want to go on record.
Yeah.
I want to go on record as saying that those Caribbean broadwings got to be a different species. Those things are really weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Avi list. Now we can actually put together a proposal and go, here you go. And they do sound different. They actually do. So
they're shaped different too. They kind of have rounder wings and shorter tails, and they're odd.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, if it makes sense, right? They're non-migratory, so they've been sitting there who knows how long. But yeah. Red-tailed hawk. There you go.
It's cool. Well, that's one, Brian, that you have focused a lot of time and effort on. One of the cool things I think you've done too is you've done a couple specific trips just to take in migration of a particular raptor species. Like, I know you did that trip to Belize, I think it was, right? To try to catch hook-billed kite migration, and I think you did the same thing. You went to Thailand. I think it was Thailand, right, for black bazas.
Yep.
What were those experiences like, and what's your next raptor you're going to go try to see moving?
Well, and I guess it was around 2012, my good friend Jerry Ligori and I were making an app for raptor identification that's still out there. You can download it for free. It's called Raptor ID. That's sponsored now by Hawkwatch International, where Jerry was working at the time. But yeah, our goal was to, at the time, apps were still relatively new, and most bird apps were just books that were reformatted for an app space. So they didn't really work very well. And Jerry and I thought, well, let's try to build one for hawks from the ground up, thinking about how we would optimize the thing for somebody viewing photos. And then the digital SLRs had just started to allow you to take video of birds. So Jerry and I thought, well, this video thing's great. Instead of telling somebody in 500 words how a sharp-shinned hawk flaps, we can just show them a video. And Jerry did these fun voiceovers to these video clips. So at the time, we had to go out and collect all this video, and it was very new to us. And we wanted to cover all the raptors in North America. So hook-billed kite, just kind of makes it into South Texas, and it's tricky to see even down there. But there was a new migration point for them had been discovered down in Punta Gorda in southern Belize. So I went down there and watched with those hawk counters down there, and we had some pretty good flights of them. Pretty amazing bird to see. It's like sort of the primary point of that hawk watch, to count hook-billed kites. But yeah, I mean, before they started, I don't think many people even thought they were migratory in any real sense.
I certainly didn't.
It was pretty amazing to go down there and get some good video of that species. And then, of course, we put it out in the app. And like I said, that app's remained largely untouched. I think we put that app out in 2013, and it's going on, 12 years old, and still pretty solid piece of work, I think.
Yeah, there's some great video clips in there.
Definitely something I'm proud of. So go out there and download it if you haven't. But yeah, the other trips I've made, Thailand, I was just fascinated by the idea of this migration point in the sort of narrow part of the Thai Malay Peninsula. And black baza, there was just something about it that fascinated me. Just looking at pictures of that bird, I was like, I just want to see these things. And
crazy looking thing.
It is crazy to go see the volume of birds going through that spot. It's not just bazas, it's all kinds of raptors and swifts and, just incredible, just visible migration there. But yeah, we got lucky on that particular trip and lucked into a couple of big end of season baza flights. And yeah, it's pretty fascinating to see just kettles of hundreds of these things moving overhead. The other trip that I've made that was absolutely mind-blowing that everyone should try to do is Eilat in Israel. The raptor migration through there in the spring is just undeniable. Like every day you can go out and it's just like a fire hose of birds going overhead.
Incredible.
I went there specifically to try to catch the steppe buzzard migration, but we also saw a lot of steppe eagles, and that earlier end migration was just phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's so many things I want to see. I still haven't been to Veracruz, so I haven't even seen the local North American sort of river of raptors. Mm-hmm. So I think Veracruz is probably my next raptor watching migration spot.
See a million birds in a day, maybe there, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's got to be phenomenal.
Is Veracruz still sort of the top pick versus Panama in terms of numbers and diversity or what have you?
I mean, I think Panama has some equally great migration.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen migration there on the early end of fall migration where we had a lot of swallow-tailed kites and things like that, but missed the big bulk of migration. There's still people discovering those sites in Panama. So I think Panama, when you look at it on a map, it sure seems like it makes sense that is the narrowest spot where all these birds are going through. Veracruz might have the added benefit of being a little further north, and some of the birds might winter in between
Right.
Veracruz and Panama. Certainly not many broadwings, but some.
In Veracruz, also, you get stuff besides hawks in pretty good numbers, as my understanding, right? You get some pretty good diurnal migration of songbirds that is probably not as true at other places. But
yeah, no, I think Veracruz can get massive flights of things like scissor-tailed flycatchers, and it's just incredible visible migration there.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
a cool place to visit.
Yeah.
I got to say that, yeah, my time that I spent in Eilat in Israel was pretty mind-blowing. Not just the raptors, but the migration in general. Just, you know, like 3 or 4 different kinds of yellow wagtails all popping into some city park lawn, and you're just like, this is amazing. And it's a shame that right now it's probably not the best place to visit, of course.
Yeah.
But it's gone up and down in terms of safety and what have you. But just as a natural spectacle, I mean, it should be something that hopefully we will all get a chance to do once again, because I really felt like when I went there, it's like, I got to get back here.
Yeah.
And maybe just be on my own for a while, just watching.
Yeah.
And that volume of birds, too, there's so many vagrants around as well. You just feel like any little stand of shrubs or bushes could have some crazy songbird as well. Or you go down to the coast and, who knows what seabird might turn up. The list of birds that's turned up
Right.
In that area over the years is just incredible.
And because it's sort of where it is, there's some of these populations of some of these warblers and thrushes and things that go over to the east and some go over to the west, and they're different subspecies. So you get the different blue throat types. You get, they'll be talking about this, nightingale's darker and this one's more rusty because this one's going over towards Europe and this one's going over towards Asia, or, the more eastern side. And it blows your mind that also the level of information that the locals have from banding and observation over the years is at a really, really, high level.
Mm-hmm.
And also the other Europeans that used to come, it was like a melting pot of minds as well that were kind of honing in on those birds. And it was really a cool experience to just see it. Yeah. But yeah, hopefully it'll happen again.
I mean, for a diehard migration junkie like me, I love migration. It's my favorite thing about birding. I love visible migration. That's why I love sea watching, hawk watching, all that stuff. When I saw a lot, I was like, oh man, this is the real deal here. This is like every raptor that winters in Africa is coming over this spot, and it's hard to describe for somebody who, grew up in North America. Maybe not that hard for people who live in Veracruz, but for us folks in the US, the volume of birds coming through there is really incredible. And like you said, it's hopefully the political climate, gets to a point where we can get back there again. From what I understand right now, a lot's pretty safe, but I still think it's tricky getting in and out of there. So
right.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah.
And, talking about your visual migration of living in California, and migration in general is kind of sparse, right? Like, you don't get the warblers sort of, dripping from the trees. But you happen to have honed in on this particular spot in Monterey on the coast where stuff is unbelievable.
Moving. Stuff is moving.
On the point in Monterey, it's people have been watching there for a while, but it seems like when you and the local gang started really paying attention, things kind of went off the charts in terms of what was possible. Was that in your mind all the time? Like, this has got to be really good? Or did you just happen to have a one good day where you were like, oh man, this is better than I thought?
Well, when I first moved to Monterey, it was, I think, 2000, and I picked up Don Roberson's Birds of Monterey book. And I was looking at all the seabird records, for the birds that I love to watch, like the Jaegers and things like that. And you can go through Don's book and pretty much see that even with sort of intermittent attention paid to the point, that they were getting incredible counts of some of these birds. So I just I was living quite close to it when I first moved out there, and it was very easy to check. So whenever the wind was good, I'd head out there and see what was flying. And I think I was just paying a little more attention to it than most birders would, and started to turn up, some more rarities and some big flights of some common stuff, which is the thing that I really get jazzed about. The first year I was there in the fall, just going down there and seeing just thousands and thousands of Pacific loons going essentially right over your head. It's pretty hard to ignore, And I'd talk to Don about it, and Don would be like, "Yeah, that happens pretty much every day." I'm like, "Really? We should be counting this, shouldn't we?" And he's like, "Yeah, we probably should." So we petitioned Monterey Audubon to fund an official sea watch there. So now, from November 1st through November 15th, they have a full-time sea watcher who's paid specifically to count the loon flight and the scoter flight. So there's a big surf scoter flight through there too. But in the process of that 6-week count, they see a lot of other stuff too. It's great for, when the wind blows out of the northwest and it's blowing hard, you can see just amazing shearwater flights from there, albatrosses from shore. It's phenomenal. Al, you were there on one oddball spring, was a spring day, I think, where we had a couple 100,000 redneck phalaropes fly by.
Right. Yeah.
That's right. I remember that.
It was so windy, our survey got canceled, and I kept seeing all these redneck phalaropes flying over with a few, other things. And I was like, I'm going to go to the point. And you'd already set up there. And it's like, I think your comment is you chose a good day to come out here. It's like, it's like, really, what are you seeing? And it's like, oh, I think we're up to like 80,000 at this point or something.
Yeah, it's crazy. But the spring can be a little less predictable because the geography of the point works more for southbound birds. So when they get blown kind of in Monterey Bay on their way south, they get caught in the hook of Monterey Bay and they have to come close to shore at Point Pinos before they turn south again. In the spring, the wind has to be really strong to get birds confused enough so that they're kind of cycling in the bay, and it's a little bit less predictable. But I'd say if you're in that neck of the woods from, well, any time really, but August through the end of December, you get one of those weather forecasts that says there's a big cold front coming through with a gale warning, go to the point. You will not be disappointed. It's a phenomenal spot.
And if you have a pelagic trip that day that's canceled due to the weather,
go there.
That's the best time to go to the point, because that's probably going to be,
Yep,
it's going to be happening.
Wow.
It's there. There's a similar situation that essentially nobody's looking at in the Chilean coast. That is almost a hook of a point, right on the coast, that some deep water close to the shore. And I just think, oh boy, if you had a group of people watching that, I bet it's amazing what you could turn up. Won't be loons, but it'll be a lot of other seabirds.
Just wait long enough. You get one.
Yeah, you'll get one.
Brian, we're coming down to our time here, and I feel like we haven't talked about your day job now much. Tell folks about Birds of the World. What is keeping you busy there currently? What's keeping you busy with Birds of the World, and what do you think folks that may not know about it are missing out on by not having a Birds of the World account? Because I feel like everybody's got an eBird account, right? But not everybody has a Birds of the World account. And I mean, I use it a lot and love it. But often I'll bring it up and people kind of like, yeah, I know about it, but they may not actually have an account. So maybe give a little nutshell of that.
Yeah. I mean, where do I start with this? Birds of the World it's an amazing project I'm super proud to be involved with. We had this idea in about 2017 that we would take what was then called Birds of North America Online, which was a series of deep natural history monographs that covered all the breeding birds of North America. And our half-baked idea was, well, why don't we just do this for every bird in the world,
Yeah.
And we thought, well, how would we go about doing that? And we'd already had some discussions with Josep Del Hoyo, who was the sort of force behind, and Lynx Editions were the force behind publishing first a print book called Handbook of Birds of the World, and then they had digitized that and brought that online in Handbook of Birds of the World Alive. And we also had a very sort of rudimentary version of natural history accounts for South American birds in a online website called Neotropical Birds. So our goal was, okay, how do we pull all of these resources on the deep life histories of these species into one platform that people can access, whether you're a researcher, science-minded birder, conservation practitioner. We wanted to have everything that's known and published about a bird kind of summarized in these species accounts in Birds of the World. So we did that, and we launched this project in 2020, right as COVID hit. It was literally March 4th, 2020. Birds of the World was launched. And it's kind of, COVID might have helped us out a little bit, because a lot of people were sort of, as you know, the first year of COVID, we were disinfecting our mail and staying in the houses and things like that. So staying that sort of housebound or sort of computer bound life that we lived for that first year and a half or so may have helped get people exploring birds through Birds of the World. So the project took off in terms of, the number of people subscribing to it and using it. We were really excited by that. But what we realized right away was that we couldn't do this alone. There's no way you can even come close to updating 11,000 species accounts on your own. So we realized that couldn't do it alone, and the ornithological expertise on the species around the world lies in the ornithological groups that are based in those regions. So we really, in the first couple of years, fundamentally changed the model of Birds of the World from one that was centered at the lab to follow one that's more like eBird, where we're really engaging with local ornithological groups to take Birds of the World, own it, run with it at the local scale, and build this network of ornithological expertise globally now that's really exciting to see. We've probably got, I guess, about 40 partners now in these global ornithological groups. Through those partnerships, we've been able to make Birds of the World completely open and available for free in about 140 countries around the world. So we're still building out those partnerships. Our next sort of target regions are Asia, Oceania, Indonesia. We're talking with BirdLife Australia about potentially working together there. So it's just a really exciting environment to kind of do what we did with eBird, not with observational data, but with the life history data now, and the more academic side of ornithology, trying to organize all that information, making it available is really what we're trying to do. So yeah, I mean, if you have an interest in knowing more than how to identify birds, it's a great resource. And pretty much every question you have about birds, you could probably find the answer to there. We're really excited to see the way that project's evolved and where it's going to go in the future.
Yeah, for me, it's like when it's my first go-to if I'm like, I want to know about the subspecies of this particular species, or I want to know about the breeding habits, or I witness some behavior of a bird, and I'm like, is that known? Birds of the World is the first place I go and check. And in the process, I end up going down some pretty fun rabbit holes. So it is really a fascinating, awesome project.
One of the things that I like, it's a neat little piece of functionality. If you load the homepage of Birds of the World, there's a little button that says Surprise Me. You can type in any species you're searching for, but there's a button that says Surprise Me. You just click on that and it'll pull up a bird at random. So I do that at least once a day and read that account. And I'm still blown away by how many birds I've never heard of, and I know nothing about.
Right. That's what I get. I'm like, what is this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did I not know about that bird? I've been studying birds my entire life. Like,
No,
what? Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Having access to that kind of bird diversity at your fingertips is pretty awesome.
You should, for, April Fools, just surprise me, just have the rough come up for everybody all over the world. That's it.
I thought you were going to say like some made up bird, something that really truly doesn't exist. That would be pretty fun.
No, I guess you could. But I mean, just the fact that everybody's just suddenly like looking like, wow, this is really cool, the rough, but everybody, the whole world is just getting the rough.
Yeah.
Hey, before we jump off, I just want to say, well, first off, thanks for having me. But I did want to say, I don't think we've mentioned it much, but all of these projects are managed by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, where I've been lucky enough to work since 2005. Cornell's doing amazing stuff out there with birds all over the world, and it is a member-based institution. So if you like eBird, Merlin, Sound ID, Birds of the World, all this stuff, please consider joining the lab, because your membership dollars do a lot to support these projects, and we're really appreciative of that. So
plus you get Living Bird, the publication. It's a fabulous publication.
Had a red-tailed hawk on the cover last time too.
There you go.
Or
whose shot was it, Brian? Was that yours?
It could have been.
There we go. Nice.
And there's sometimes a little button that's on the bottom of eBird somewhere where it says just donate. Like if you're feeling like you had a good day out, even just click on that. Even if you are a member, I would say it's like money's hard to get to do these projects that we love. So.
It is, and I would say, we are in some turbulent times in many ways right now, and the lab's been through some of these turbulent times before. Nothing like this, obviously, but we do have a solid vision, a solid foundation, and we do want to keep all of these projects moving forward and more into the future.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend supporting the lab, because it is an amazing place to be.
Right on. Well, thanks, Brian, so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. We've been wanting to do this and just have a conversation with you about all the stuff you've been working on and the stuff you're seeing. So really appreciate you doing this today.
Yeah, I'm sure thankful to be here, and think the Princeton Field Guide is slated to come out in the spring of 2027. So if I don't come back before then, nice. If I don't come back before then, have me on after that, and I'll tell you all the stories.
Yeah, we certainly will.
Stories.
That is going to be, that's an epic one. People should definitely be looking out for that.
That's the documentary I want to see. Is behind the scenes at the Princeton.
It's going to be, if that book is successfully launched in 2027, it will have been a 20-year project. So it's a long one.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
I think what we'll do is we'll interview. We'll interview each of the authors independently, asking them the same questions and see how they each respond. That could be pretty juicy. Yeah.
Good.
Nice. Well, thanks again. And thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back again soon with another episode of Lifeless to Birding Podcast. Take care, guys. Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
Guys.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Brian.